Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the podcast. So it's another week and we're going to talk about outbound sales strategies this evening. Today I should say, because it's something that's a thing that's really close to my heart. It's, as I say, I'm just finishing off a 2-week trip down to South Africa with my team here, and one of the things I hear a lot about is about how do I do outbound? How do I go about winning new business? So I want to share some thoughts today about how you can do that. And I'm going to start by saying this. People ask me the question. A lot of people say, "Oh, is it outbound dead? Is it still the right thing to do? You know, what's the best way to approach this?" And many people actually think, "Oh, I don't know if I should do this, or I don't know if I want to do this." So the first thing I'm going to tell you is this: you have a target to hit. If you are not hitting your targets right now, and leads are not coming to you, you need to go to them. There's a saying I use with everyone that I work with, which is if your ship is not coming in, you have to swim out to it. And otherwise, either that or you accept that you're not going to hit targets, and the consequences of that are lots of things. Sometimes if you're in a sales role, it can mean losing your job. If you're in a business, it can mean not hitting targets, and worst case, not bringing money in that can stop you from doing what you want to do and to living the life that you want to live. And so I think it's a real shame that more people don't think about this. I speak to so many business owners and people that sort of want leads magically to appear on the tree, and they don't. And the reality is, if you don't know where to focus and where to generate business, then you never will generate business, and you're relying on hope and expectation, and hope's not a strategy I advocate. So look, if you're thinking of starting an outbound strategy, what are the things you should do? And here's the sort of steps I would take. And there's sort of 6 steps that I think you should focus on. And I do a course on this, a sales plan course. You want to reach out, have to have a chat about what that looks like. But the first thing I always encourage people to do when you're starting with a strategy here is to start with some, not just about volume. I hear a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm going to pick up the phone." In fact, I had a client recently whose team would go, "Oh, I'm going to pick up the phone." And it's like, okay, so who are you going to talk, and why are they going to care about listening to you? And we had a conversation for a while, and basically the sales team were doing this activity, and it was basically a waste of time. For want of a better phrase, they were wasting their time because they were doing things that were just basically what I call boxing in the dark. They didn't have a clue what they were doing, where they were doing it, how they were doing it. So I always say to people, start with some clarity on who you are reaching out to and why they should care before you even engage in any way, shape or form. So who are these people, and why should they care about you and your outreach? And outreach which is focused on you selling and pushing your services and saying, "Hey, we're here, do you want to buy our stuff?" I think in some cases it can work if you're very much a transactional business, but if you're in a relationship sale or the sales cycle is longer, then it's a much harder thing to do. So I encourage you to start firstly by get a bit of paper and just working out who you're reaching out to. And the second point, which leads on to that, is to have what we call an ICP, or an ideal customer profile. So I'd like you to define who your ideal customer is. What's their journey? What's their pain points? So I was doing some mentoring with a company at the moment with some of their team that are up and coming. And with each one of them, I've talked to them about, in a competitive market, you've got to be able to really understand your audience. It was once told to me, get a PhD in your customers' problems. And so really thinking about the audience and what their journey is and what's triggering them is a massively important thing to do. When you're spraying and praying, your target and your outbound activity generally is more chance of failing than not. I've got a guide that I've created on success rates for salespeople. And if you look at the numbers, they're quite scary in terms of the average conversion from outreach activity to new business. So it's something like in the region of 3% of total conversations you have will turn into customers. And that's with a really quite targeted and focused approach, because it is difficult to turn cold leads into warm business. But if you're just generalizing and just trying to go after everyone, then it's even harder. So spend a little bit of time to write down, the pain points. I always say POs follow pain. So what are the pain points of your audience? What are the challenges? What are the things that are causing them to be concerned or to want to invest money, or what impact is it having on their business? What challenges does the pain create? And create a persona. And if you don't know what a persona is or don't want to, reach out to me, contact me at James White Sales, put a comment in the podcast outline, or reach out to me and drop me a message in my team, and we will send you an ideal customer profile document that when you complete, it takes a bit of time, really gets you to understand your audience and who they are. So I'm going to encourage you to really just think about the pain points and the challenges or the desires of your audience, not just what you think is what you offer. And as I said to someone I worked with yesterday as well, be really honest with yourself. There's a great book by Marcus Sheridan called They Ask, You Answer. And what he does is that he basically talks around how you need to really think about what's going on in the mind of your buyer. I always talk about sales, and what we do is prospecting about, put yourself in the shoes of your buyer. What are the thoughts going through their head around your service or the service from anyone else in your marketplace? What are the things that are going through their mind? And if you can't work those elements out or don't know those, then speak to some of your customers, maybe who are existing customers. Ask them, what are the biggest challenges they're facing? What are the things that are on their mind? What are the things that keep them up awake at night? There's an old, great way to look at it. What are the bleeding neck problems? If your neck's bleeding, you got to fix that quickly. If you don't fix it, you're dead. So what are the bleeding neck problems for your audience? And when you start to understand that and know and think like a buyer, then things become easier. And people say, oh, it's hard. I don't know my buyer. I don't know my market. You've got tools out there. There are now AI tools that can help you understand the challenges. If you go to, ChatGPT or anything like that and ask, I sell to, HR directors of of IT companies, put in there what the challenges are. Do a Google search. There are information and lots of details out there about the challenges of your audience. And the more you understand that, the more you create a persona, the more you can then try and craft a message that is going to turn that outbound approach into something more concrete. So that's point number 2 in total. Point number 3 is this. I think too many people lead with a pitch. And the problem is, when you lead with a pitch rather than value, you are increasing the chance of your audience basically saying turn away and ignoring you. And that's because no one actually buys your product or service because they want to buy your product or service. They're buying it because it does something for them. It gives them something. It gives them an outcome. It gives them something that they can use. And so when you lead with a pitch, it's easy to turn off and say, oh, I'm not interested in that, because they just want to serve themselves. Now, in some cases, it can work with a small portion of people. It can work. And in some cases, you can find that you can be a bit more direct, some people. But invariably, if you're trying to do outreach activity now and you're going in with a hi, I'd like to sell you our stuff. This is what we do. We are this company. We are great. We are this, we are that. Most people, I think, are going to ignore you. Whereas if you go in with what I call a value-based approach, where you're trying to help, not sell, and create some doors with some education, then I think your chance of success do go up. Not always straight away, but in time, but it goes up. So an example of that might be when I go and talk to my audience. One of the things that I will do is I will talk to my audience and say to them and share some ideas on how their sales team are maybe not performing at the level they want them to. Or maybe I'll share about how their sales team don't have control of their numbers, and therefore can I share some ideas on how they can increase their conversion rate at different stages. All that does is it makes my prospects go, okay, this is quite useful, it's quite helpful, and enables me to open the door. So lead with a value. I actually have this saying, show sales value before sales vanity. So before you start saying how great you are and telling the world how amazing that you are and what you can do for them, give them some value and insights. And one of the things that you need to do is accept that you might need to do that without getting anything in return. And that's why outbound is tough and takes work and time, because you have to sometimes knock on the door before you get a result. I had, and the way to see this a little bit is like, sport. I interviewed a couple of cricketers that I sponsored a while back, and Jamie and Craig Overton, and they were telling me, they expect bowl 45 balls without getting a wicket. They accept and understand that they're not going to get a wicket straight away at every ball, but they've got to do the work to get that, and they trust the process. So I'm going to say to you, you've got to trust the process by offering value and sharing things that are helpful, and then doing the other things that we're going to talk about in a moment. You're going to be able to increase your chance of getting some outreach. But again, like I say to you, response rates from even just response rates, even if the overall conversion rate is 2 to 3%, response rates can be 5 to 10%, maybe 15% in some cases if you're doing it really well. So understand that for every 100 people you speak to, 80 odd are going to leave you alone and not touch you, engage with you. But if you can engage with 20 that are, then you're in a good position. So that's point number 3. Point number 4 is this. I think that the way outbound prospecting is done now has to be done on a way which I will call personalization. What do I mean by personalization? If you can personalize to your audience and talk about some stuff that's really unique to them, such as comment on a post or something that's changed in their role, or a shift in their marketplace, or something that you've seen that's happened to them, then I think you're going to see a far greater increase of people wanting to at least engage or have a conversation. Especially if you know that you've been able to help people in that industry, in that space before. Because if you can, and again, one of the great ways to do this is to look at your existing customers and see who you're working and be successful with, and then engage with the similar types of people. And what it does is when you're able to then talk about, actually, I understand the challenges you face, but congratulations on what you recently did there. I saw that and thought it was great. What you do is you bring people, you make people think that you're not just seeing them as another notch on the bedpost, but you're actually keen to engage with them and support them and help them. So try and personalize. And, a great way to also do that is a thing that I use is some printed cards. I have some printed cards that I will send to people just to be able to open up a conversation or to say congratulations or to say well done. And little gestures like that can make a big difference. And that leads me on to my point around, my next point around, how to engage in this is don't just focus on one channel. I have people sometimes say to me, I've emailed people. I'm like, okay, email's great, but people get hundreds of emails per day. Your email is probably just gone to the bottom of the pile. If you think that's the only route to success with them, you've got to change things around. So, I think there are 3 or 4 different methods you can use. You can use the phone. Again, a lot of people don't know how to do that. I'm maybe going to do it. I've done some podcasts on calling. That's one thing. You can use email as part of a mix. You can use a social media strategy, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. You can use video prospecting. So video prospecting, so using a tool like Loom or Vidyard enables you to do a video bid to help someone. You can also do direct mail, which is a good way. Maybe even voice notes, which other people are starting to use. So what you've got to try and do is to get into what I would call a cadence rhythm. So work out your sales cycle and then be in a position where you can start to communicate with that person. Let's say your sales cycle takes 3 months for you normally to find out to work with a customer. Then start to engage every 2 weeks or every 10 days with that person with a personalized approach on issues that they face across multiple channels. And suddenly they're going to see your name appearing in multiple areas and go, who is this person? And it's going to make them more likely to want to open up a conversation. Now, it can make them go, thanks very much, I'm not interested, go away. And that's fine, it happens. But if you mix your channels up and become prevalent in lots of places, then it makes a difference. And you need to make sure that your messages in those environments are also quite short and sharp and punchy. I'm not going to go through everything today in the podcast around how to do outbound activity totally, but so many people get it wrong by focusing, like I say, on what they do rather than by being able to share something that's of value. A lot of people will ask for time, I think, at first. I get loads of people on LinkedIn that message me and say, can I have some time? And I'm like, I don't even know you. You're not in engagement. I don't even know what you can offer me, and yet you want me to give up my most precious asset. No, I'm not going to do that. So sharing guides, sharing resources, sharing cheat sheets, checklists, one-pagers, really great way of being able to build that value. And if you do that across multiple channels, it can help. Yeah. So the next point is about consistency and discipline to do things on a regular basis. And one of the biggest things that people get wrong with outbound is that they dip in and out of it, and it doesn't work that way. Outbound, I always say to people, generating new business is like going to the gym. If you go to the gym and start doing it, but then stop and don't go for 3 months, you get unfit again. And Outbound is the same. You've got to build like what I would call regular daily disciplines for you to outbound and to engage with people. And if you outbound and engage with people in the right way on a consistent basis, day in, day out, even spend an hour a day on doing it, the best top 1%, I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on the top 1% of sellers. The top 1% of sellers will always prospect on a regular basis, daily basis, because they know that they've always got to just keep the funnel fat at the top and keep adding new people in. And when you actually do add new people in and start having conversations, you become less desperate for the ones that are lower down your funnel to close, because you just know that, okay, well, I've got other opportunities there. I'm not stuck with one option. And that will make a huge difference when it comes to the way in which you approach things and the way in which you do things with other people. So really try and just have the daily discipline and consistency to engage. I always say to people, my record is 19 times when I engaged with a lady in my previous business. I engaged with her time and time again, sharing value, sharing insights. And on the 19th time, she came back and said, thanks very much for this. It's helpful. Now's the time. And it took around 8 months, I think, to do it, but it was worth it in the end. And then the final part of this, how to approach outbound is to test and measure and to refine things, to send stuff out and to see how you get on. You can't improve what you can't measure. And if you send some communications out and those don't work, fine, try a different version. Try and see which methods work best for you. Try and see which methods maybe work best for your audience. You've got to be able to engage with people rather than just being able to, and then measure what's working rather than just hope that one message or one email will work. When we create, my team creates sales blueprints for people, we will always say, look, there's going to be a bit of work to do over a period of time. We're not going to get this always right. So you've just got to test and tweak things and accept that things are going to take a little bit of time, but accept that if you do that, then over a period of time, you're going to get some results. And like as I say, this approach works. It's worked for people that I engage with. We generate leads and opportunities from having conversations, especially when you talk at the problems of the audience. But you always have to remember, as I always say, this is going to take some time. It's going to take some work, and it's going to take some effort. So please don't think this is a simple click your fingers and you're going to be there. So that's how I approach an outbound strategy. By the way, if you think I'm wrong, I think I'm mad, think this isn't the right way to do it, then let me know. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. If you think there's a different route, if you think it's the route just to phone up 500 people a day and see how you get on, let me know. I think there's better ways of doing it, but hey, share your thoughts and let me know what you think. But yeah, if you want to achieve success over time and get results, you've got to understand that it's going to take work, it's going to take effort, and you're going to need to commit to doing it. And if you don't, then don't be surprised when the results don't happen. And if you're not sure how to do it, or you think, oh, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, then ask for help. Ask for help with it. Someone like me or someone else, just ask for some help. There are courses, there are materials, there are guides available to help you do this more effectively. In fact, I've actually got a prospecting guide, which we'll put a link to, so that you can get access to this as well. But you have to do it. If you're not going to do it, don't be surprised if the results don't happen the way you want them to. So hopefully that's helped you give some outline on an outbound strategy to approach. Try it and see what happens. Let me know what you're doing. And again, one of the things to think about, and I'm maybe going to cover this off in a podcast itself, is people are afraid of the rejection or people saying stuff to them or whatever. Just remember, at the end of the day, people aren't being personal to you. They're just, at that period of time, it's not right for them. So just be brave, take some action, get on the front foot and do some things and see, you can see what happens from there. So I wanted to, as I always do, I basically finished the podcast with an inspirational story. And I wanted to do a story of a guy called Spencer West, who was born in America in 1981. And he was born with a condition called sacral adhesions, I think it's called, which basically meant his legs and his spine didn't work. And when he was 3 years old, his legs were amputated to the knees, and he had to move around using his hands in his wheelchair. And he was bullied at his school, but he went on to basically become an inspirational story. He basically climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2012 to raise money for a team in East Africa. And his challenge in his story is about overcoming adversity. And this is a guy, Spencer, who's had some of the worst times really that you can imagine. Being a double amputee is horrendous. But he decided not to let his disability bother him and affect him. And he's got on with his life and built an inspirational story. So there you go. Spencer West is today's inspirational story for the podcast. I always think, as I always say to you, if you go through a tough time, and you're thinking that life's a bit crap, then remember, you could be like someone like Spencer, who overcame losing his legs to progress and to develop. So, yeah, maybe use that as a story for you. But that's it for this week, as ever. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, please let me know. We're growing the podcast. More and more people are downloading it than ever before, which is fantastic news. And I'm really keen to bring you more guests and people to help you achieve what you want to. So yeah, just thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and sharing the podcast with other people. Let's get more people getting the sales success they want, and if we can do that, we're all going to be in a good place, and I'm certainly going to feel better, because that's why I do what I do this for. So that's it from me. Thank you so much. Take care, guys. Have a really week, and see you soon. Bye.